I talk a lot about the bad, obnoxious, stupid, and dumb guests at the theme parks. But are they really that bad? Well, if you've watched my videos very much, you have almost surely come across one of my videos talking about the dumb things that guests say, or the stupid things they do, or the downright dangerous and obnoxious behavior that so many of them exhibit. It sounds sometimes like there's a lot of it that goes on, and as a cast member or a theme park worker, yes, you're going to have to deal with this. But how often do you really have to deal with them? How much do they affect your hour, your day, your week? And how often do you really want to just kill them? Because it does happen. Let me kind of break it down into the types of bad guests, and using those I can give you some examples of what each are, and as well as how often you really had to deal with them. The first category I would put in the dumb guest, the confused guest, the one who doesn't know what they're doing or where they are, or they're just plain lost. These are the ones that walk up to you when you're standing in front of the restroom and say, "Where's the bathroom?" I don't know. The ones who ask you, "What time is the 3 o'clock parade at?" And yes, they really do ask that. Exactly that, not having a clue they're answering their own question. By the way, there is no parade called the 3 o'clock parade. You have the Festival of Fantasy parade, the Disney Dreams Come True parade, Paint the Night parade. There's all sorts of parades with different names, but none of them are called a 3 o'clock parade. The 3 o'clock parade happens at 3 o'clock. But you'd be surprised how many people can't figure that out. People that walk up to you at Epcot and ask you how to get to Walt Disney World. You're here. People that walk up to you at the Magic Kingdom and ask how to get to Harry Potter World. Wrong park, wrong company. People that come up to you at the train at Silver Dollar City and ask if the train is there. And you kind of look in the depot and go, doesn't look like it to me. Just the goofy questions that people aren't thinking about when they ask it. And this actually happens pretty often. I would say probably a couple times an hour. You get so used to hearing them, especially certain ones that you hear so often, that it just kind of goes in, you recite your memorized answer almost like a robot some ways, but you don't show as much emotion as a robot, and you just keep right on going with your day. They're ones that you expect on a regular common basis. This is not your dumb guess that says, well, how do I get to that ride? Or where is this thing? Or where's the closest location to get something to eat? Those are normal questions. They don't bother you at all. In the dumb, silly ones, you definitely hear certain ones on a regular basis, and you just kind of get used to it. Now, on a typical hour at a typical theme park, you're dealing with several hundred guests. And so if you get a couple of goofy questions an hour, and you've dealt with 700 guests, well, it's really not that much. So you don't notice it that much. What really stands out are when you get the occasional new one, the creative stupidity, I guess you could put it. The people that walk up to you at like Silver Dollar City and ask, "When did they move the cave?" What? I don't know how you could move a cave. You tend to remember those because they do stand out. And you don't get those anywhere near as often. You still don't get them all the time, but yeah, those are the ones you go back later to your coworkers and say, "Yeah, wouldn't believe what I got asked today." So when you do get a question like that, yeah, it stands out, but because it's really unusual. You just don't get them that often. So no, it's not constant, although there is a steady stream of it, and it's just part of the job, and you just go along with it and just keep on flowing. The second category of guests I would put as the ones who misbehave. They're a little bit obnoxious, safety hazards, they do things they shouldn't do, and you'll see this a couple times a day. At Walt Disney World, you knew as a parade time was approaching, you were going to have to tell people to not sit on the garbage cans or stand their children on top of the garbage cans. You knew if it was a slightly busy day, you were going to have to tell people to not stand on the handrails in the gardens. That was just part of it because they're not thinking about slipping and falling off or dropping their kids. So you knew that there were certain times you're going to see certain kinds of not real smart behavior. Outside of those times, you would see it a couple times a day. You would occasionally see somebody wanting to hop a fence to take a picture, particularly at Magic Kingdom and Epcot. You would see people that would do things that they knew they shouldn't, but they would anyways, a couple times a day. If you're taking pictures of one of the characters, you can expect a couple times a day to have somebody behave inappropriately. Maybe try to grab one of the characters or grope them to figure out what they are. Somebody trying to act inappropriately with one of the princesses. Unfortunately, that was usually men my age, which is why I behave very carefully when I'm around the princesses. Yes, even the princes, when they were there, would get it occasionally from some of the ladies. Couple times a day was something that you would see often enough that you would watch out for it and kind of prepare for it. It's sad that the characters had to deal with that often, but you could also expect that you could go 2 or 3 hours and you were going to have far more good experiences than you would that. And so it would really outweigh it. You'd know that the one person was a jerk and an idiot, and fine, you're gone, they're done. And you didn't have to worry about him anymore. And then you go back to having fun with the good guests and the kids that are appreciative and the other people that are so excited to meet the characters. You knew that there would be 1 or 2 people a day, if we were out on the streets taking pictures, trying to flip off the camera because they think that's cool and original. Let me give you a newsflash. It's not either one. If you want to photobomb a picture, do something nice. Otherwise, we're just going to delete you and you're dumb. Yeah, you would see that a couple times a day. In fact, you actually learned when you were taking pictures to watch not just who you were taking the picture of, but also the people in the background because you didn't want to get a picture like that. And I would have probably once a day where I would have to put the camera down and kind of wave the person. I see you. You're not smart. You're not cool. I know what you're trying to do in the background. And every now and then, like every few months, you'd have one person that just would not move because they think they're going to be really neat and bomb it. And then you just have to walk over to them and look, dude, you're not smart. You're not cool. You're not being funny. Move on or I will go have somebody else move you. That was rare to get that. But to get somebody photobombing, yeah, once a day or so. So you'd get that occasionally. The people that would talk rudely to you, you knew you were going to have a couple a day. The people that hadn't paid attention to what they were doing.
What do you mean this ride is closed while we're here? We waited all year to come see this ride, and now you're not letting us do it.
Well, I'm sorry, it's been closed for a month and it has another month to go. That's not my fault. You knew you'd have at least one a day like that. If you were closing the line to meet a character, you'd have somebody come running up after you close the line, their time was done for the day.
But we've been waiting all vacation.
You could almost guarantee, I would say probably half the time when we closed the line to meet a character, in particular at Epcot, you would have somebody run up like that. About half the time. But we've been waiting. Well, you shouldn't have waited. So there were, again, times that you knew it was going to happen. But again, it was very much outweighed by the hundreds and thousands of other guests that you had dealt with that day in positive engagements and things that were great. And so it really didn't affect your day. You just kind of rolled your eyes at them, okay, we know that you're my daily doofus, and you just go right on with it. But it was often enough that they definitely gave you training in traditions and in your other training to deal with it because they knew you were going to. The bad ones, the really bad ones, the ones that would want to get in your face and yell and scream and be extremely disrespectful or do something incredibly stupid. The ones that have the horror stories. The ones where I can tell you the story in detail. Like the lady who wanted to ride the monorail from Hollywood Studios over to Animal Kingdom because she'd been on the monorail that morning to Hollywood Studios, which is impossible all the way around. She stands out because she was unique. Rare occasional times you would have fistfights stand out because they were unique. They didn't happen very often. The people who would get caught doing something terrible, they would stand out. You would get that, in all honesty, probably every 2 or 3 weeks, I would say, just trying to throw out an average. I really didn't see them that often or deal with them that often. which sadly made them memorable. These are the ones that could actually ruin your day depending upon what happened and when it happened. You might need time to step backstage and just kind of breathe and relax because they were the ones you wanted to kill. The people who would run out in front of a parade and then stand there in the middle of the parade and try to make a show of themselves while holding the parade up. And the people that almost got run over by the trolley because they refused to move, not realizing that trolley is going to run them over and injure them. The people like on Rhino Rally who wanted to stand up in the water portion and run to another side of the Land Rover so they didn't get a few drops of water. In 2 years, it only happened 2 or 3 times. So exceedingly rare, but because it was so rare and because it was so out of the ordinary, that's what made it extremely memorable. And thankfully, you didn't have those very often. I'm almost afraid that you see it now more than when I worked at the parks, just because in the last few years it seems like we've forgotten how to treat people decently, like we've forgotten how to treat people with respect and to be nice and to be kind and be grateful for the job they're doing. We've really gotten a lot ruder and much more self-centered. We tolerate misbehavior in ourselves and the way we treat other people a lot more than we used to, and that's really kind of a sad thing. There's actually a part of me that's actually grateful I don't work in the parks now, because I would have to put up with it more. I know even the jobs that I do, I have to deal with it on a much more regular basis than I did even a few years ago. Just some of the things that people say are just much ruder than they used to be, and that's a really sad thing. I know in talking to some of my cast member friends, it does seem like they have to deal with it more than what I did. It's still not all the time and constant, but it's becoming more and more regular and more, I don't want to say accepted because it's not accepted, but more people think it's okay for them to behave that way when it's not. We've got a lot more people that have no problem arguing, cursing, threatening, yelling, and treating with disrespect and rudeness, when really what we should be doing is we should be treating people with love, with peace, with patience, with kindness, with gentleness, with self-control, and we've gotten away from that. That's really sad, because that was always kind of my motivating thing, is this is how I need to treat people, and I hope they would treat me the same way. And I hope you'll treat people the same way, because we want people to treat us like that. Well, we've got to treat others that way first. And I hope that kind of sensibility comes back a little bit. In any case, that's about what it's like to deal with guests in a theme park, about how often you'd get it and how rude and how mean. And for the most part, it really didn't affect your day that much because you had so many good guests to deal with, and those were wonderful. Do you have stories that you'd like to share about the good or the bad guests? I would love to hear it. Do you think my numbers and averages are off a little bit? I'd love to hear that too. Please share it in the comments below. I want to thank you so much for liking the video, sharing the video, subscribing if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? Check that description. There's a ton of information there. If you got a question, check it first. It's probably got your answer. I also want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and to my patrons for their financial support. They mean so much to me, allow me to do so much, including fixing lighting if you hadn't noticed. If you want to know more about Patreon and YouTube membership, check the description. There's information there. I also want to give a huge shout out to Rich Walker for increasing his pledge on Patreon. Thank you so much, Rich. I hope you have a wonderful time at the parks, and may God bless you for watching. Talk about some of the things that they've done and give a little clarity. Okay, yeah, that's kind of a lousy line. And more importantly, how do they affect your overall... Why are you making noise, printer? I don't know what my printer's doing. It just randomly is doing stuff. Lovely. Are you done? The people who call, If you'd like to know about my merchandise, contact information, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of my videos, hit that button right there to subscribe, And if you want to see another one, well, I've got a great video for you right here. If you like to be like these wonderful people here too and support me financially on Patreon or YouTube, well, hit that little button right there. It'll even give you behind the scenes access and more perks. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless.